Okay, we are live. So as normal, we know that it's going to take a little while for people to kind of jump on, which is perfectly fine. We're actually, okay, I don't think I said this to you, but we're actually on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook.
Amazing.
So we're broadcast. We're trying to get as much bang for our buck as we can possibly get. So what I was thinking that we would do is, well, first of all, everybody, welcome, right? Welcome if you are here with us live, if you are catching us, if you are like Nike and I, running from other things to be here in time to have the conversation. Welcome, relax,
Yeah.
deep breath. It's all good. Um, and what Nika and I thought we were going to do would just have a conversation. So actually, right before we jumped on and went live, we were just saying, you know what? We planned this thing out. We talked about what we would talk about, but maybe we'll follow that. Maybe we won't. But today's topic is all about you as a ambitious female leader and working on not balance, because we all know that balance is, it means different things to different people, but
Mhm.
working on your well-being and not having to sacrifice that as you continue to advance your career, whatever that looks like for you. For some of you, for some of us, advancing our career is having broader roles. For some of us, others of us, advancing our career is maybe getting promoted into more senior leadership positions. For some of us, it could be starting our own entrepreneurial adventure, right? Whatever advancing your career looks like, the the philosophy or the old school thinking that you have to sacrifice your well-being, whether that's your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, your relationship health, the health of your relationships, that is outdated thinking. And what we want to talk about today is probably share a little bit of our stories, as well as how, the people that we work with, the women that we work with, and maybe some of their stories as well. And through that, hopefully that you are getting some tips and some strategies, and frankly shifting your way of thinking about what a professional ambitious woman looks like when it comes to well-being, overall well-being. So thank you for being here. Nike,
Yeah.
thank you for, it was your suggestion actually to even have this conversation and do a joint live. So thank you for suggesting it. Um,
Yeah.
and so maybe we just kick off with introductions. I think we have probably people who don't know you or I, and maybe some people who know you, not me, and vice versa. So let's just introduce ourselves. For what? But before we do, I don't. Did you bring your drink, Nike?
You know what? Listen, I'm
What you
been
going?
such on the go. I looked at the time, and to be fair, I am in Pacific Standard Time, so
Oh, okay. Yep.
it's still a little early for
Okay.
me, and
Okay.
I'm still
Okay.
finishing my workday. So I have a drink in spirit. Just
Okay. What is it? What is your drinking spirit? Well, tell
my
us what it
drink,
is.
yes, absolutely. My drink in spirit, honestly, in the spirit of like we're going into Thanksgiving, because I'm not skipping Thanksgiving. Everybody's already like jumped over to Christmas, and I
They
refuse.
have. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in the holiday spirit, my drink in spirit is a hot toddy. Actually, no, let me take it
Ooh.
back. I'm gonna do a spiked cider, and I
Oh.
love doing a warm cider on the stove. So I'll like get like a good cider like made from like a local farm or orchard rather, put it on the stove, and then I'll add some type of brown liquor. And my brown liquor of choice would probably be, you know what? My husband drinks Douce, so I'm gonna go with Douce
Mm.
because I'm actually not a, or maybe let's do, because I'm a Beyonce fan, let's do Sir Davis
Okay. Okay.
with with a nice apple cider, warm with a stick of cinnamon. Oh,
Okay. I am ashamed to say that your drink in spirit is so much better than my real beverage of choice.
Which is,
But
what do
it
you have?
sounds really good. Honestly, what you just came up with sounds
Yeah.
so good.
Can you tell I'm ready for the weekend?
And for the holidays, like an apple cider, like
Right?
that is giving all types of feels of, fall feels, which is great. Okay. Me, on the other hand, I am in my mother's house in Brooklyn, which is like 200 miles from where I actually live. And it's
Mm,
pouring rain here right
mm,
now. And I love the rain, but I actually have
okay.
to go out and walk in it for like an hour just now. So my feet were all wet. And I was like, when I came in, I was like, I just need a hot cup of tea. So my
Mm,
beverage of choice is very
I
simple.
love it.
It's green tea with honey in a big ass mug
I
in my
love
mama's house. Like
I
that's
love
what
it.
we're doing tonight.
That feels like a hug on top of
It
a hug.
is. It
Like
is.
being at mom's house and then having a cup of tea at mom's house and it's
It
raining
is.
outside.
Yes. And I got my fuzzy wool socks on. I'll spare everyone from seeing that, but yeah, that's what's going on. Okay. So with our drinks, real and made up at the moment. Go ahead, Nike. Please introduce yourself. Formally
Oh my
introduce.
gosh. I'm so truly like honored to have this conversation with you, and I have to share what you shared at the top of our conversation is why I was like, we need to do something together. Like your passion for women leaders and their success, it like overflows, and that is my heart. And so whenever I meet other women who like share that, I'm like, I don't know how or where or what way, like, but we have to stay in community. And um just thank you, thank you, even sharing. And I know we're not even into the conversation yet, but even you sharing that it's raining and that you went out and walked in the rain,
Yeah.
that is such a powerful way, like acknowledging, like, yeah, I actually like to walk in the rain. And there's so much symbolism there. And
Yeah.
that's such a practice of like being in nature, even
Yeah.
when nature is not necessarily its most beautiful,
Exactly. Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Nature, like, it doesn't have any feelings, it just is. Like,
Right.
even that is such a beautiful wellness practice that I offer to my clients. But
Right.
so I just wanted to start off by saying thank you for your time and energy and for how you show up in the world. But for folks who have not met me or don't know me, my name is Nike Olabisi Green, and I'm the creator and chief movement leader at NOLA Movement. At NOLA Movement, we believe that when women are well from the inside out, we can change the world. And I have been serving that big mission as a wellness leader and life coach since 2016. And even before that, I've taught dance fitness classes since 2008, 2009. And I pivoted into the role and to the space of life coaching in 2020 so that I could begin serving my clients not just through physically moving their bodies, but really by focusing on the mindsets and the practices that allow you to create a life that you love. So I serve women, Black women leaders, and our rooted allies in securing better jobs, raises, and promotions. And so that is who I am. You can find me and my work truly mostly on Instagram now, and then in Cleveland, and now starting to do events in Los Angeles as well.
Ah, cool. So cool. Okay. Yes. So based on that introduction, we definitely overlap in more than one ways. Because I am, so hello everyone. Again, my name is Dr. Nicole Bryan. I am a executive coach. I specialize in helping introverted women get into the executive level, right? For all the reasons that we already know. I am on a mission to even the playing field between men and women in terms of our pay, our power, our influence. And my way of doing that is making sure that we get more female introverts into the executive suite so that we are, in fact, making decisions for ourselves versus having our male counterparts only be the ones who are making decisions for us as females in the work world. I am also a very, very strong advocate for making sure that we get paid And when I say paid, I mean in terms of recognition as well as financial, because I do feel that financial stability, financial freedom, our financial aspirations helps us build the wealth that we want for ourselves and for the generations that come after us. Um, I know for me, I never had a goal of making a lot of money per se, but I always had a goal of financial freedom. And
Mhm.
so I just took the path of making money, a lot of money to get to financial freedom. But yeah, I that those are the things that I have felt have been important, pivotal pieces of my journey that I see mirrored in all of the women that I work with as well. So that's me. Okay, so today's topic, which is all about wellness, well being, while we are being powerful, dynamic, ambitious women. Where should we start?
Maybe with our stories
Sure. Okay, good.
and how we each like started to fold in wellness
Yep,
into who we are as leaders.
yep, yep. Okay. You want to go first?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
And I will share um I will share a little bit of my story and more so what I was folding in and then what I saw and
Okay.
how that like started to shape my work. And so um I was a dance fitness instructor. That was actually what I was
Oh,
doing.
yeah, I remember you telling me that. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So that's actually what I was doing in my as like my full-time work. And so I was already like moving my body consistently. And this was, I'm taking us back to 2008, 2009. That was the work that I was in full time. And what I realized was such a powerful ad for me was um, other aspects of wellness, right? So for myself, I realized, oh, it's not just about the physical movement, right? It is actually about the community. So
Mhm.
who am I surrounding myself with? So I got to a point where I realized some of the friendships, relationships, people that were in my circle, people that I was working with, that it was actually important for me to be really clear about who are the types of people I like to surround myself with, what are the boundaries that I need to create around my work so that I
Mm.
have time to be in community and to be in spaces where my cup is being filled instead of me pouring out. And so, really, I would say the first part of my career, I recognize that it's not just about physical movement. Physical movement is such an important piece of it.
Yes.
And another really important piece is actually community.
Yeah.
Another thing that I recognized, and this I would say started honestly a little bit before the pandemic, and I feel like the pandemic really like escalated it. But this became clear for me when I stepped into entrepreneurship, which was in 2016, was the mindset piece of it.
Mm.
And the leaders that I was around were constantly reading. And I realized like, wow, I actually haven't been a dedicated reader since I was in grad school, like, and since I was forced to read a book, like, right? And when I sat down and thought about it, like, man, and again, this is like 2018, 2019, so just before the pandemic, I was like, when is the last time I read a book by choice? And it was like,
Mhm.
here, there, so forth and so on, but not like consistently.
Yeah.
And that was when I realized, like, oh, like I actually really need to be intentional about developing my mind.
Yeah.
And so the first goal that I set for myself was like, you know what? I just want to read 12 books. I just want to read one book a month. Like that
Okay.
feels very manageable. I literally just had like a sheet of paper. I put down the numbers 1 through 12, and I started that year like my goal is one book a month. And
Okay.
so some months I would read one book, other months I would read no books, other months I might read 2 or 3 books. But by the end of that year, I had read 12 books. And I was like, yeah, this is the type of person I want to be. And I
Mm.
recognize like this is how you develop and sharpen your mindset, and
Yeah.
how that is really, and these are books that were sometimes related to entrepreneurship, which was my work and is my work, but sometimes just related to life. Sometimes and I'm a big fan of like not a ton of fiction, but personal development, and then also like stories. So
Yeah.
like I know my first year I read like Michelle Obama's book. That was the year, I think the year her first book came out. I was reading the story, Madam CJ Walker, right? That was
Oh
another book
yeah.
I
About the
read
person.
recently.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
just reading the stories of other women who are already like leaders in their own right. And so that was when I realized the power of like developing my mind, and how an important aspect of my wellness is actually my mindset. And so it was like, it's truly been over the course of my career that I've realized like, oh, it's not just my physical movement, but it's who am I in community? Who am I allowing to pour into me? What are the books and podcasts and things that I'm allowing to come into my energy and my spirit and my mindset? And then, the same thing I would add around like emotional wellness and spiritual wellness, like being really mindful of my hygiene as it relates to my
Hmm.
emotional and spiritual health and wellness. And so like um I'm super intentional about who I allow to like even put their hands on my body. And I mean my hair, I mean my
Hmm.
nails, I mean if I'm getting a massage, like I don't just let anybody actually touch my body.
Hmm.
So these are just some different like over the course of my career, and as I've stepped into life coaching, these are the different like aspects of wellness that I realize like, oh, it's so much more than just moving my body.
Yeah.
And so how that is translated into how I serve my clients, and it's specifically why I call myself a life coach. Like I do help women secure better jobs, but it's not necessarily through like let's work on your negotiation skills, or let's work on creating an Excel sheet to document how many jobs you have. The women that I'm working with actually already have the expertise to do that. I'm
Right.
supporting them with the life stuff, because when your life is actually like when you're actually well, and that's why I started with when you're well from the inside out,
Yeah.
everything else is actually falls right into place, and it's so much easier. And so that's just a little bit of my story and my journey, and how I kind of
Yeah.
was able to identify these different aspects of wellness, and then
Yeah.
how I've really been able to bring that into the work with my clients.
So I I'm first of all, I love what you said, and I'm fascinated by it because honestly, the way you just described wellness, I think many of us, including myself, may already think about wellness beyond just like the physical aspect of it, right? The mental, the emotional, spiritual, etc. But the examples that you gave in terms of even making, being so deliberate in terms of your choices, in terms of who you're in community with, right? That means you are electing, frankly, right, who you are having ongoing conversations with, who you might be sharing ideas with. You also are deliberately thinking about and selecting those people who help you continue to be well. So the person who helps you with your hair, the person who gives you a massage. Like, I'm not gonna lie, there's sometimes I just click a button when I'm trying to get a massage. I just click a button. I look at the reviews. I'm like, okay, clicking a button. I don't know this person from Adam, right? I just know that they're
Mhm.
supposed to be a good masseuse. So the way that you are deliberately navigating and creating or cultivating all those different aspects, like that is, I mean, I think that's like the definition of being intentional, right? And I can see how that plays out in a much not broader but deeper definition of well-being. I honestly wouldn't have I've never thought about my hairdresser, and I have a good hairdresser, a really good one.
Mhm. Mhm.
But there is drama that comes with her, right? And she's probably watching this as well because she supports me. But she has a lot of drama. So as
Yeah.
I think about like, and some of us, particularly us as women of color, Black women, like
Hmm.
our here experience
Yep.
is very meaningful for us, right?
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, that's interesting. That's yeah, you took it to a whole nother level there for sure. Okay. Yeah, in a good
Yeah.
way, in a really good
Yeah.
way. Yeah,
And that's the level that and again, that's where I take my clients to. We go there, and the reason why is because as a human being, right, you're worthy. You are worthy of living your
yeah,
life in that intentional of a way.
yeah,
Um, and I think we get in a cycle of whether it's scrolling social media or going day to day to work and not like really slowing down, but actually, like, I believe creating a life you love. And I pull this from TikTok. Like, you build your For You page brick by brick. Building and creating a life you love, it happens brick by brick. It happens moment by moment. It happens decision by decision. And it's not an accident, right?
yeah, yeah,
It does not happen by accident.
yeah, yeah. So it's really good. So yeah, so I'll save that. I'll save the recap for the end. But I think what you just said there, I mean, honestly, even that definition, I think, can expand many of us, the way we think about it, right? Um, so for me, my story is, I mean, I used to say I'm just a girl from Brooklyn who, grew up and found her way, but I stopped saying just. I made myself
Mhm.
stop saying just, right? Because just is minimizing, frankly, my story. And I think many of the women that I work with do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm just so and so.
Yep.
So these days, I say I hail from Brooklyn, and I grew up
Yes.
like many, like many of us, not having access to lots of different things, resources, the world. And I grew up in an era before there was the internet, right? The internet didn't come about until after college for me.
Mm.
But I um, always grew up, like many of us, seeing very strong women role models, even if they were not necessarily working outside of the home, they were still leading in some way, shape, form, or fashion, leading the family, leading at church, leading in the community, leading in raising not just their children, but everybody else's children around them. And so that's when my fascination with leadership came into play, and
Mm.
particularly women leaders.
Mhm.
And as I was coming up and entering the workforce, it was evident that there were so many inequities between men and women in particular. I went into obviously corporate America, and when I went into corporate America, I was very well educated. I was one of those people who was like, I'm going to have all the credentials I could possibly have because that's what's going to take me to the top, right? So I had every certification, every degree that I could get my hands on, every experience. And I was hoping that that would carry me and make others see me as their equal, right? Someone who could lead in the corporate environment and continue to move up. And I learned very quickly that that was not that
Mhm.
was not a case. And so I saw that happening to myself, but I also saw it happening to other women as well. So it was weird because I was experiencing it, but I was also having an out of body moment too because I was
Yep.
watching it happen
Yep.
to me and other people. And then and that's where my second level of passion came from,
Mm.
thinking that and understanding that the system in which we were working was not necessarily built for us, women, female leaders, particularly women of color, Black women. It's not built for us. But however, I was determined to not let that stop me, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't give a damn that it wasn't built for me. This world wasn't built for me, frankly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And everybody, we're still going to succeed one way or the other. And so that's
Yeah.
how I felt about corporate. So, um, but in that process, well-being came to be a part of how I identified myself in a couple of different ways. The first was that as an introvert, I have very little excess energy to spend.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be working very long hours. I was, giving all of my mental capacity to the job, and I loved it. So I wasn't one of those people who was like, oh, I just gotta, like, I enjoyed working and I enjoyed, thinking strategically and working in a corporate environment. Loved it. However, I was always depleted. Like I had nothing left to give when I left that
Yeah.
office, right? And so what I quickly realized is that I needed a physical outlet in order to help me have more mental capacity to do the
Mhm.
work.
Yeah.
So it got to a point where my team would be like, I'd be snapping at my team, or I'd say something, or I'd be moody, and they'll be like, did you work out this morning? Because
Mhm.
they knew that that was how I prepared. Like if I did not work out in the morning, they would feel it. They would
They
see
would
it.
feel it. Mm-hmm.
Right? So I'd be like, why don't you go get on there, let's go do something with yourself. So I made the physical fitness a part of my daily, take how I took care of myself,
Yeah.
but it became a necessity. It was not
Yes.
nice to have. It was
Yep.
like, you gotta get that worked
Absolutely.
out. So that was a part of the well-being. And then the next level was for me the mental part of it, right? Again, not only because I was an extrovert, introvert, but because I also worked in human resources. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was everyone else's sounding board. And we all know if our friends come to us, they constantly come to us. We're great. We can talk and we hold them up, but at
Yeah.
some point in time,
Yeah.
either somebody else has to hold you up, or you
Yep.
have to figure out how to hold yourself up. So
Yeah.
because I was that, I served as an HR person and I was receiving everyone's complaints and helping them navigate and, sounding board, it was a lot to carry. And that's when I realized, okay, you need mental fitness for you is going to
Yeah.
be, it has to be your next thing that you take care of. Um, so much so that I decided to go back to school and become a psychologist,
Mm.
not just for me, but for other people as well. And so the only other thing I will say when I think about well-being is, and I don't talk about this very often, and I think I'm going to start talking about it a lot more, Nike, is I was definitely a workaholic.
Mm.
And I will say that, and I am not, that is not something that I'm bragging about. Like when I say what I was addicted to work, I was addicted to work. Like
Yeah.
even when I was away from work, I was thinking about it. I could not shut off my brain.
Yeah.
Um, and as like most addictions, it spurs you. Like you're really into it. Like you can't stop, and it's giving
Mhm.
you momentum, is giving you energy, right? Until such time that you literally hit a brick wall. And
Yeah.
that's what it was like for me. Like I would be taking on more, not because the company said, yes, the company asked. I could have said no, but I didn't.
Sure.
I wanted it. Like it
Yep.
fed something in me. And so that addiction led to me having to go cold turkey. Like I had to take
Mm.
multiple career breaks, like just stop
Mhm.
working because I could not work and manage the work addiction at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, and my way of actually stopping the work addiction was going and getting my psychology degree. So I went to
Mhm.
school to study work addiction, and
Wow.
to help treat other people with work addiction.
Yeah.
And that was my only way to stop it, right? So I was able to come out of that with a better understanding of what wellness is, right?
Mhm.
So you shared your definition and well-being and wellness, like, and my experience as well as my own addiction helped me to round out my definition of well-being too. And it is one of the things that I help my current clients with, right? Because we as ambitious women, I mean, we're going to get stuff done. Like that's what we are known for, right? Where it doesn't matter what's on our plate, we're gonna figure out how to get it done. Um, but when you can't stop that, when you
Yep.
have to keep going and going and
Yeah.
going, and you can't, there's a lot of talk these days about living the soft life
Yep.
and finding balance,
Yeah.
right? Or integrating things in your life so you have a holistic view and holistic experience, and all of those things are very, very important. But some of us can't do that without some other level of support, and recognizing that we can't stop on our own. And many of my clients find themselves in that predicament, and that's one of the things that I help them with. Yeah.
That's so amazing. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing your story and your journey of wellness, and how you found your way to slow down and step
Yeah.
out of that addiction of work. And I think it's so interesting, because it's like the pendulum swings, right? The pendulum swings. And I think the truth is, and you started sharing about your story with, as young girls, we actually see leadership all around us and the women around us.
Yeah.
And what I imagine for both of us is that the women that we saw worked nonstop, not only to, as you shared, right? You're taking care of little ones, you're keeping the house clean, you're making sure dinner's together, they're making sure bills are paid. I mean, they are going nonstop, and that's with a job or just being at home. And I don't say
Mhm.
just like to minimize that, but like some women have both, and some women are CEO of home. And so we grow up watching that. And I think so many of us have internalized that. And it's why we've had this pendulum swing, right, to this soft life where women are like, you know what?
Right.
I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it's so interesting. And I love, what you spoke into about calling in support for that, because it's exactly what I'm seeing as well. And the work that I focus on with my clients specifically to support that is boundaries.
I just wrote that down. I just wrote boundaries down. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that. Yep.
Right, because usually there is a need to, one, what I'll say is get really clear on what you want, because you can actually have everything you want, you just can't have it all at the same time, all at once.
Right.
Right? So what do you want, and what do you want right now? Like,
Yeah.
what do you want most right now, next, in this season? And when you decide to focus on that, then you can create the boundaries that actually support that happening. And what that means for most of us is that we have to let go of all the other things that don't align with what you want right now.
Right. Right.
And what I see is usually that's the hardest part, with the women that I work with, because I say we're only going to focus on 3 things at the most,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
because
so
your
hard.
work is going to, right? Your work is really going to be like, now you have to step out of some of these commitments, and that is conversations. That might be like, you're stepping off of a board, you're leaving one workplace for another, you are no longer sitting on the PTO or the parent association. And so that might be a 2 or 3 month process to remove yourself
Fine.
from the
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
from the things that actually no longer align with what you say that you want right now, and then putting the boundaries in place
Yeah.
to protect what you say you do want. And so, I love that you shared your story of being addicted to work, because it's for sure what I see. And it's addicted to being to work and to being busy
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Right. So it is all the boards, all the community meetings, all the things. And when we allow ourselves to actually prioritize like what we want and what we want to create for our lives, then we can create the space to like, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to be okay with that. And that's going to be enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because I think, again, when I think about being addicted to busyness, being addicted to work, the truth of it, and I think that what we have to admit to ourselves is our companies, or the associations that we're involved in, or all of these external things, yes, they absolutely make demands on us, but we say yes, right? We say yes to it.
Yeah.
And let
Yeah.
me just speak for myself. I would say
Yes.
yes over and over and over and over again, knowing intellectually that I could say no, but
Yeah.
there was something in me that refused to say no, right? And what
Do you
I
feel
often,
like you were a people pleaser? Like, do you feel like that is part of your story?
I wasn't a people pleaser. I was a overachiever, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
there was a problem to be solved, I'm gonna solve that damn problem.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yeah.
there was a new thing, a new project that was coming out, I'm like, yo, I want in on that.
Yeah. Yep.
If there was I don't know, whatever, a discussion where everybody was getting together and they were brainstorming, I wanted to be in on that discussion. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was, and not honestly, at the time, not for the recognition. I
Yeah.
just felt like I needed to be involved in all the things, and
Yeah.
doing all the things, and saying all the things, and going to all the places, and like that was, it was just, if I wasn't doing those things, I felt like a slacker. Me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we can talk about where that came from, and
Yep.
my childhood, the background, all that stuff, but it doesn't eradicate that
Yeah.
in the moment I was saying, hey, I want to do ba 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 ba.
Yep.
However, when we think about boundaries, I think it's boundaries for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We have to set boundaries in ourselves, with ourselves,
Absolutely.
and we have to set boundaries with other people, and our organizations, and
Yep.
even our children sometimes, and our partners, and whatever,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yes.
but the key to me is, again, I think we intellectually, everybody listening to this probably intellectually is thinking, of course, yes, we have to set boundaries, but I think I would challenge us to be like, what was the last boundary you actually set
Mm-hmm.
and sustained for yourself?
That part. That's the part. The
Yeah,
setting is actually pretty easy.
yeah,
It's the because inevitably, whether it's the workplace, whether it is family, partners, kids, friends, whether it's your mindset, right? Inevitably, someone is going to push against that boundary.
yeah,
It's going to test that boundary,
yeah,
and it is the sustaining of it. That really creates the space to focus on, like, okay, here's what I said I'm going to do, right? And I'm going to continue to protect that thing with this boundary.
yeah, 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 yeah. So it's the boundary piece for me. Yeah, for sure. Um, when you so we have a few minutes left. I'm just
Yeah.
curious, in terms of, for our listeners, when you think about trends, right?
Mm,
So patterns that you may be seeing with your clients. We talked
mhm,
about a few of them, like
mhm.
defining what it is and prioritizing what they want, right?
Yep.
That's one. Being able to not just only set boundaries, but respect them for yourself and
Yeah.
maintain them. What other, like, trends around well-being do you find you see repeatedly or hear repeatedly with women that you work with and speak with?
Yeah. So the other big thing I'll share, that I see for sure, I would say 80%, if not more, of the women I work with is around nutrition
Mm,
and actually just not eating because they're so busy. And like once like they will start the day with a cup of coffee and maybe a pastry, and then they will cruise on caffeine or
yep.
like snacks all day. And when women come to me, that's actually one of the first things I ask about is like, are you eating?
Yeah.
And then another question I'll ask is, are you sleeping? Because all the other stuff that we want to do and build, actually, those like nourishing your body, like we're not going to talk about losing weight. We're not going to talk about getting that next job. Again, as a life coach, I can help you get that promotion. I can help you make more money. But if you are not eating or sleeping,
Yeah.
you better believe that's where we're starting. And so, one client that I have in mind right now, like that's where we started. And it was like, okay, you have to eat breakfast and you've got to get some protein in to start your day. And so that's where we started. And one principle that I talk about with my women is there is an investment triangle. So the triangle is going to be time, money, or energy.
Mm.
So you might have to invest a lot in all three. Usually you're going to invest a lot in one of those areas to create the ease that you need. And so a lot of times, for the example with nutrition, some of my clients are like, okay, I'm going to invest in time to do meal prep so that I can eat throughout the day. Others will choose like, you know what, I don't have the time. I'm going to invest money in some pre-made meals that I can grab. They have the nutrients that I need and I know that I'll eat. But for sure, the two biggest trends as far as like executive women leaders and when it comes to focusing on their wellness, it is around nutrition and it is around sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you were saying that, it made me think about really practical, all right? So as an executive leader, really practical how those things play out. So for example, and I know if you're listening at this point in time, live or in the replay, you're gonna be like, yep, that's me. So the first one is real, this happens all the time. You're in back to back to back to back meetings. You
Mm-hmm.
may have bought your lunch. You may
Mm-hmm.
have, right? Like your admin or somebody else might be like, yo, it's time to eat. Da, 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 da. But you are not stopping. You are
Mm-hmm.
literally going back to back to back to back. So that's one reality. The other thing I thought about was, and my team members used to get on me about this all the time, like because I was in continuous meetings, I wouldn't go use the bathroom.
Yep.
I would not literally take a bathroom break, right?
Yep.
And when finally like 3 o'clock came, I'm running to the bathroom, like get out of
Yes.
my way. And they're
Yeah.
like, why are you torturing yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Like that is a human bodily function. You could have
Mm-hmm.
easily said, give me
Yep.
5 minutes, I'm going to the restroom, I'll be
Yeah.
back. We don't
Yeah.
do that. We just
Yeah.
push through it, right? Same thing with sleep. Yes, either because we are thinking, we're ruminating on whatever things that happen through the day, things we got to do tomorrow. A team member said such and such. We're either ruminating on it, or the stress is just so high that we can't sleep through the night, and we're
Yes.
not putting in the right sleep hygiene to be
Yeah.
able to kind of push past that, right? Like, so all these things,
Yep.
they're like real life examples where we're doing these behaviors, but not necessarily connecting it back to well-being, right? Yeah, I'm not sleeping, I'm stressed. That's not like we say that so passively, like, oh, I'm stressed.
Absolutely. Yep.
Dude, you're stressed. When you don't sleep, you
Uh-huh.
don't think. When you don't
Yes.
think, your body doesn't function the way it needs to function. You're not digesting. If you are eating, you're not
Yes.
digesting your food correctly because you're carrying the stress.
Yes.
You hold on to excess weight because you're carrying the, like, it is
Yep.
a domino effect. But
Yes.
what we say is, yeah, I'm a little stressed. Like,
Yep.
there's
Yeah.
no such
And
thing.
there's so much science coming out right now that supports what we've already all known, but there's so much science specifically coming out around sleep and how important sleep is and how your body literally is regenerating, it's
Yeah,
like building itself. And
yeah,
so when we're not getting sleep, we're actually missing out on essential body functions that only happen when we sleep.
yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, so that's it. So those trends that you mentioned, I think are really, they're they're so important, and primarily because we take them for granted and we
Yeah.
overlook or minimize the importance
Yep.
of what it really means to us.
Well, and I think you called it out so well early in our conversation when you spoke about corporate really being a system that actually doesn't support
Yep.
our success. And I think the same is true as it relates to things like, um, having meetings scheduled back to back, or, needing to have more frequent breaks. Like, if we don't like raise our hands and ask for that and create the boundary around that,
Yeah.
the system is actually not set up to support that. Like,
Yeah.
the system is just going to keep like doing what it does. And so it's important for us to, I think, recognize that. And when we choose to be a part of it, make the decisions by setting boundaries that allow us to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is one thing I think, if we leave this conversation with anything, well, there's many points that we are leaving with, but the one thing I wanted to make sure that I said was, one of the things that I always discover with the women that I work with is there is an underlying assumption. Maybe it's because of how we've been trained as leaders, or maybe, the rules that we're supposed to follow within the environments in which we work. But there's an underlying assumption that even though these women we are leaders in our own right. We lead the teams, we lead ourselves. Some of us are already executives, but we still do not create the space and time. We still do not, we are actually in positions to make rules for
Yeah.
ourselves,
Yeah.
but we still don't do that, right? We still, for whatever reason, don't feel empowered to do it. And we kind of just go along to get along. And one of the things that I work with my clients on is recognizing the power that they already hold and
Yes.
executing it, right?
Yes.
Leveraging it for themselves and for their team members, essentially. Because I think it is just very easy to see what's around us and just keep moving, right? Keep following the unwritten and the written rules. Whereas I'm always pushing my leaders to be rule breakers. Even if you're breaking the rule
Love
only
that.
in your mind,
Yep.
that's fine. That's fine. We can start
Love
there,
that.
and
Yep.
then it will turn to action. But we already have so much. We already have enough power to make a difference for ourselves. Let's start executing on that. So yeah.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah.
Break the rules.
Yeah, break them, break them, break them, and don't look back. Just break them.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we are at 7:15, or a little bit
Yeah.
after 7:15. All right, so let me try to recap. I mean, honestly, I think again, I love that it wasn't scripted. We're just having a conversation, but when we think about ambitious leaders, and we specifically, the title of today was the Ambitious Leaders Guide to Power and Wellness, right?
Mhm.
So as ambitious leaders who are listening to this, who we are all working in our respective environments, we are all leading both in the workplace and outside of the workplace. The thing that Nikkei and I want to leave you with is really thinking about what well-being means to you, like really defining it. Nikkei defined it for herself, and at the beginning of the conversation, I was like, oh, I'd never even thought about that, right? Thinking not just about wellness in terms of the physical aspect, but also mindset, community, spiritual, emotional, being very particular about who you let into your environment, who you let touch you, who you let influence your thoughts, right? That is a very holistic and very deep, in my opinion, definition of well-being. But what does well-being mean for you? What does wellness look like, feel like, smell like? What is that for you? So I think that that's one thing that we're saying. Define wellness for yourself. I feel like the second big point we made was boundaries, right? So, Nikkei, you shared about how you are seeing women set boundaries, but not necessarily sustain their boundaries, right? Because we know once you set a boundary, at some point, somebody's going to push up against that. Even you sometimes might push up against that boundary. boundary, but how do you ensure that you don't let your boundaries fall to the wayside and wind up just back where you started, essentially. What else? Any other points you want to recap for our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I think those were the two big ones, really, is defining wellness for yourself. And once you have defined that, um, choosing what you're going to focus on and taking that step and setting those boundaries. But I think probably the last piece would be calling in support. And I think that's where you and I really have the honor and privilege to serve so many women leaders. And you spoke to this before. You called in support when you were experiencing the addiction of overwork, and that was in the form of like, okay, I'm gonna go back to school. Like, right,
Yeah.
I'm gonna understand this. I'm gonna be around people who understand like what I'm experiencing and what I'm seeing. And I think that's what you and I get to do in such an amazing way for the women that we serve. Like, we get to be that support.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. All right. So this was fantastic. I'm glad that we actually did this. Glad you
Yeah,
suggested it. Where can people find you? I think you said it at the beginning, but can you share again where people can follow you, stay in touch, contact?
absolutely. So the best way to connect and follow me is on Instagram. All my handles on all the social media platforms is the same. It's my full name. So Nikkei Olabisi Green. Put that in and I'll come right up. And if you are wanting to book a call with me, if you're wanting to connect with the events that I'm doing, whether it's virtual or in person, all of the information is on Instagram.
Cool. Okay. And for me, I am on Instagram, but not really. I am, if you want to get in contact with me, you can contact me on LinkedIn. I am also at www.thechangedoc.com. But more, if you want more to hear about kind of my philosophies, if you are an executive woman, a woman leader who wants to move into the senior leader and executive ranks, then probably the best way to stay in contact with me is via my podcast, which is called Leading Her Way. And you can find that on any podcast channel. Wherever you listen to podcasts, I'm there. And so, on behalf of Nikkei and myself, thank you so much for joining us. Nikkei is going to go have her made up beverage that she concocted on the
In
fly
spirit.
at the beginning. I'm going to go finish drinking my hot tea. But we are both sending you guys love, leadership, and legacy as we sign off. And we hope you have a great, great evening and an even better holiday season. All right. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.